Hello and welcome to the program The Desk on Global Television, where we look at very silent issues and give you very balanced analysis of all the big stories. On today's edition is no different, as we'll be looking at the local governance and the unsettling state of affairs at the local government area. We'll also be looking at the MFLA's gate. Banks we hold CBN funds as CADESO seek reforms. We'll also be looking at the new minimum wage. NLC proposes sanctions for defaulters, talking about governors. And we'll also be looking at Yahaya Bello's arrest. The appeal court hears EFCC's appeal today is what we'll be looking at. We'll also be looking at the counter-terrorism African meeting holding in Abuja currently. We'll be looking at what this means for Nigeria and the sub-Saharan region. We'll be looking at that in retrospect. Also, hopefully we'll be joined by Dr. Nwanosike Osorochi Samuel, who is the Executive Chairman of Ikwere Local Government Area of Rivers State. And also we'll be joined by Issa Aliyu Shatta, who is a political economist, to help us look at all these very interesting talking points. That will be after this quick break. Stay with us. All right, welcome back from that break. It's now time for us to kick into discourse. We have Issa Aliyu Shatta, who is a political economist, joining us via Zoom, and hopefully we will be having Barrister Chukwuma Nze, who is a national activist, who will also be joining us in the course of the program. Let's begin our discourse with the look as regards the Emefiele Gate, where about 531.4 billion naira of the Central Bank of Nigeria intervention funds remains unused in the coffers of 9 deposit money banks in the country. This is what the findings have shown, and this came on the heels of the suspension of all CBN intervention funds by the incumbent governor of the CBN, the person of Olayemi Kadaso. Last October, the CBN governor, upon assumption of office, stopped all development financing of intervention program, stating that the lines between monetary policy and physical intervention had become blurred. All right, Issa Aliyu Shatta, let's look at this recent decision by the CBN governor when it came into office in October, stopping all interventions by the CBN. Right now, it's saying in 9 deposit banks across the country, as much as 531.4 billion naira is unused and kept there, and the CBN is looking at ways to recover these funds. How do you see this playing out in the coming days?
It's not going to be any different from all the, discoveries that we've heard and all of the efforts that, they are making to recover the funds. But I would like to say that, yes, despite the fact that interventions were withdrawn, right? Despite the fact that interventions were withdrawn, right? There are specific things that the CBN governor has spoken about, which is the intervention that was given not too long ago to the farmers and through the Ministry of Agriculture. And all of this is to see how they can support farmers and increase the yields that we have over time, so that we really don't fall short of, the inputs that we have. Then even the prices of food can also come down after the farming season, right? So these are all of the efforts I feel the central bank is, putting in place to ensure that they stabilize the economy and ensure that food inflation is driven down consistently.
Look at talking about for the 9 deposit banks, is there guarantee that these monies are still unused? And the fact that the CBN governor is looking at how to get the refunds of these monies, do you see that happening in quick succession? Or we know that banks usually would want to be tempted with the fact they want to invest these monies in order to recoup some benefit for their own businesses.
Yeah, if you look at the body language of the current CBN management, you will know that it's not business as usual, right? That's the reason why you see that there has been stringent, measures put in place to stabilize, the monetary policy part. And in doing that, there are a lot of circulars that, have come out successively, week after week, in the previous months to ensure that they are re-emphasizing to all of the players in the industry, most especially the banks and the financial institutions, re-ensuring to tell them that it's no longer business as usual. And I want to believe that as we are even talking right now, the process of recovery is currently going on. And in no distant time, you will see that CBN will announce all of the mop-up that they have done in the banks.
Okay, in terms of the manner to which the fact that once he came into office in October, he called for the stopping of all those interventions. Do you think it was the right move? Knowing fully well that in as much as yes, there was corruption, infractions in some sectors, some ministries, these interventions did help some Nigerians get over the removal of subsidy and also helped in some other critical sectors of the economy.
Yes, don't forget that just shortly before he was appointed, you know, we had an investigation by a private investigator that was going on at that time. And there were some preliminary reports that have been probably exposed or reported to the president or the presidency. And I want to believe that before his appointment, he was briefed on certain things that have been discovered and the quick decisions that he needs to make immediately assume office. So all of those actions that you saw the CBN governor taking were not taken in isolation. They were actually taken, I want to believe, in consultation and in consultation in terms of the discoveries that the private investigator, you know, had reported. But having said that, even if it was done in a haste, you will see that the management was also matured enough to see how they can retweak or tweak, you know, the policies that they have stopped or they have suspended. That was the reason why, you know, they had to intervene in the they had to intervene with some fund to the Ministry of Agriculture to the farmers, like I said earlier in my opening statement. So you can see that there is a conscious effort to rejig, retweak, and also review even the decisions that they have taken, because they are seeing the impact reflected in the economy, and they are also seeing the ripple effect over time. So during the course of all of these policies, there is room for them to, you know, look inwards and see where they can adjust where necessary to respond, you know, to the economic either actions or inactions that, you know, has been going on.
One thing the CBN governor did say is the fact that he wants to redirect the CBN from being an entity that involves in direct intervention to the advisory role the CBN is supposed to play, rather than being an entity that does the direct intervention for the government. Where did we get this wrong, and why was it easy for the CBN to deviate from its mandate, which was supposed to be advisory rather than the direct intervention?
We got it wrong where we didn't have strict checks and balances. We got it wrong where there are obvious connivance and obvious concurrence to agreeing to what the leadership, the management now, the leadership has, you know, has requested for and it was approved. Don't forget that the CBN is a functional institution that deals with different even levels of or layers of checks and balances. You have the board, for instance, of CBN, who checkmates the activity of management. And even before they meet for MPR, I'm very sure that the board also sits, you know, for them to deliberate and see how they can either adjust or readjust interest rate or whatever rates, and look at the inflation rate as well. Then look also some monetary policies that can directly or indirectly impact the economy. So we got it wrong at that point where we didn't have oversight, where we didn't have clear-cut checks and balances, right? That was where we got it wrong. And it took years of, you know, non-interference. I would, yeah, it took years of non-interference, even oversight from the National Assembly itself, right? Because the National Assembly, both in the House of Reps and Senate, have an oversight on CBN. So it's not just about bringing budget, passing the budget, and passing the budget into law. It's for them to also scrutinize correctly what the budget of the CBN is. It will amaze you that a lot of people don't really know what even the budget of the CBN is, and that is a bit worrisome as well. So this gives, you know, that outright disposition to the person at the helms of affairs at that time, either to abuse or to misguide or mismanage, you know, the treasury at that point. And of course, you can see the ripple effect over time. We were printing notes without the backing. Don't forget that the governor of Edo State back then raised an alarm and said that we were printing notes without the backing in reserve. And you know what that will mean? When you have a lot of funds in circulation of course, inflation will drive up significantly. Then that begins to impact your currency because people will begin to use your currency to do what? To stock up foreign currencies. And that's the reason why you have seen that we went through a crisis of currency scarcity and at the same time, high exchange rate. It was as a result of this inadequacy or inequality that existed in printing of funds. And if you look at it, we are told by that trillions and trillions of naira were printed. This current management, I am 100% assured, and I'm 100% sure of that. They are currently even still mopping off those currencies in circulation just to stabilize, the economy and the exchange rate.
All right, Ali Shata, thank you for opening the server. Let's also join our second guest who has just joined us via Zoom. He is Barrister Chukwuma Nze, who is a member of the NLC, a national activist. Chukwuma Nze, thank you for joining us on the desk.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Chukwuma, let's look at we just finished discussing about the issue in terms of the monies in the banks, about 531.4 billion in 9 banks still unused, which was supposed to be disbursed to Nigerians, beneficiaries. But the central bank is looking at how to get these monies back from 9 banks across the country. Let's also look at the next talking point, which has to do with the NLC proposing sanctions for defaulting governors as regards the strong indication that NLC might press for the inclusion of a clause that would prescribe sanctions for governors and local government administrators who failed to implement the new minimum wage. Let's get your take on it, because the National Treasury of the NLC, Hakeem Ambali, disclosed this in an interview in Abuja, said the refusal of state and governors to pay the current minimum wage was as a result of the lack of punitive measures in the Minimum Wage Act of 2019. For you as a unionist, what do you think could this be the game changer ahead of the new minimum wage Nigerians are expecting come May when Workers' Day?
Yes. Practically, it has to be...
please, we would like you to speak up so that we can hear you.
I said practically, that is the best approach that will enhance implementation. Because if there is a minimum wage act and you go to the state level, people are paying all kinds of funds when the market is not regulated by the amount you pay. The truth is, the new minimum wage act should come with that clause, because it will help workers get something commensurate for the service they provide. Like we say, workers create the wealth, but what they take home is not commensurate to the work they do. And most times you find out that these people work with under strenuous conditions. Like since this removal of subsidy, you know what workers are going through, paying over 70, so in some cases 80% as transportation to their workplace, and at the end of the month they still get that meager salary, which does not put food on the table. So if the status quo persists, it means that we will be consciously promoting corruption. I think every state governor should identify with that project without even waiting for any punitive clause to be added into the act. The truth is, any governor that has conscience knows that workers deserve their wage, and the wage must be commensurate to the service they bring to the table. So these are the issues. And when you go into the market, when you get into the market, you know what the prices are. Since the inflation rate is still soaring high, and amidst the diminishing dollar exchange rate, the commensurate impact is not felt in the market space. So these are the issues. These are the realities that the average worker in Nigeria encounters every day. And that is why the National Treasurer of Congress spoke in that direction. And I urge others in that committee to toe that line so that it will be unanimously adopted to be one of the resolutions and to be part of the act.
All right. Before I go to Issa Ali Shatter, this same bill is supposed to be expected to be sent to the National Assembly as a form of amendment to the current Minimum Wage Act. The minimum wage is to be unveiled, expected to cushion the effect of the removal of subsidy on the premium motor spirit. Do you think it's going to succeed? Because there are supposed to be public hearings in different zones, suggested in different amounts as regards the minimum wage. Do you think it's going to get a speedy hearing when it gets to the National Assembly?
Yeah, because of the realities in the society, the National Assembly members, they are also part of the society. They are there in representative capacity, and they are constituents must have been complaining. In fact, most of them, when you engage them, they tell you how much complaints they get. Their phone lines are bombarded with SMSs, SOS calls, and they do the much they can. So they would hasten that process so that the workers, at least out of the bulk of the people who make such requests, will be removed from that list. Because whether we like it or not, the reality of today is that you rarely find any worker whose pay takes him home. It's when I talked about earlier about people paying over 70% to 80% as transportation. When you take 70% as transportation from the salary, what is left? And you will have to put food on the table in your family. You have to pay school fees. You have to send money to your parents or your other dependents at home. So where does those money come from? So at the end of the day, it only promotes corruption. And that is why you see corruption thrives in our society. And to make it stop, to put an end to corruption or to mitigate it to its barest minimum, we must start to take some of these decisions that will ensure that people get commensurately paid for the services they render. And whenever we have the opportunity to ensure that those things work out speedily, like what the legislators should do, they just don't have option than to align to that part, because they are also workers at their own right.
All right, thank you, Chukwuma. We'll get back to you in the next couple of minutes. Issa Ali Shatter, thank you for standing by. Issa, let's look at, during the public hearings in different zones, suggested different amounts of minimum wage. The Southwest zone suggested about 794,000 naira. In the Northeast, they proposed a sum of 560,000 naira as minimum wage. In the Northwest, they proposed 485,000 naira. The North Central proposed 709,000 naira. The South demanded 850,000 naira, while the Southeast demanded 540,000 naira. How realistic all this money is being banded around by the different zones? Southeast 540, and we've got a South 850, North Central 709,000, and talking about the Northwest 485,000, which seems to be the lowest or the more realistic. Then we've got the Northeast looking at 560,000, the Southwest looking at 794,000. As a mobile money man and someone who's into the economy of money, how realistic is this, and what do you think we're going to see May when the government decides to, that's if they decide to declare a new minimum wage?
All the figures are very realistic. I'm sure you'll be shocked at my response.
Yeah, very shocked.
They are all realistic in as much as it's not the federal government that is paying it for them. They are more realistic if the states can generate enough funds to pay those amounts. They are all realistic. And if you ask me, Anthony, can the state really generate those kind of money to pay their workers? The answer is yes. Because remember, I've said it severally on this platform, not particularly this program, but on your platform, on your TV station, that there are ways the governors can look inward to generate additional revenue or to generate additional funds beyond the federal allocation that they get. Every state has its own unique peculiarity. Every state has its own unique comparative advantage. If they can use those comparative advantages to their advantage, right, they will be able to meet up the obligation 100%. Then secondly, can the governors be sincere enough? When I say sincere enough in the sense that the money that's been allocated, right, while they are not injecting it into frivolous contracts that we don't really get to see at the end of the day, they channel it appropriately to where we can see value for money. I'm sure you are aware of the 10 billion naira that Abia, the previous governor of Abia State, has said they've used to build an airport that never existed. That even the current incumbent governor is, making it light.
I'm talking about Ikpeazu now.
Yes, they are looking for native intelligence or artificial intelligence to see where the airport is located because they cannot find it. And they have even engaged security agents to see whether they can help them or assist them in locating it. That's on a lighter note. But the truth is, that tells you about the depth of corruption that takes place in the states. That's why I said if the state governors are honest enough, if they are transparent enough, those monies are monies that they can pay. Then, can they also make sacrifice to cut from their security votes and add into the income of civil servants? Why? Because if they take care of that part, if they are able to engage more people and they are able to pay their workers more, they would have taken care of what I call social insecurity. Because social insecurity is exactly what has metamorphosized into the insecurity that you have today. A lot of people are hungry. You hear all sorts of stories, desperation here and there. What is the problem? The problem is that we don't have enough people that are engaged. Even those that are engaged are underemployed. Those that are even underemployed are underpaid. Those that are underpaid are facing economic challenges. Why? Because we don't really have those key elements of economic cushioning that can help soften, the sufferings that the civil servants are going through. That is why you have all of these anomalies. But the truth is, frankly speaking, all of those funds are realistic based on those geopolitical zones. Some political zones get more allocation than others. So they can, all of those oil derivations and the extra funds that they get, what are they using those money for? You cannot point a single project that you can tell me that is realistic that they have been able to achieve. Most of they still depends on federal government. Everything is federal government. This is federal government road, federal government this, federal government that. So at what point will the state sit up and take and own up to their own responsibility? And that is exactly why I said, if the state are sincere enough, they can pay all of those funds.
All right, let's just, my final question on that issue is, what are your expectations in May when the federal government is expected to name a new minimum wage, hopefully on Workers' Day? Do you see that happening?
It will happen, but my expectation won't be very high. If I want to be realistic and talk to civil servants directly, I'll tell them that they should cut their expectation very, very low. It is better that, they under-promise and over-deliver. If not, majority of them will end up with BPs. Because right now, their expectations are higher. Everybody is thinking of the huge amount of money that will be added into their minimum wage. The thing is, even if they can, Anthony, is not realistic when you want to equate it into economic forces. And the reason why it's not realistic is today, we are still grappling with the shocks of food inflation that has skyrocketed and is about 33% as we speak. If they increase the minimum wage more than 200% or 300% or even 400% or even 500 or even 100 or 1,000%, the exponential effect will be so huge that the economy won't be able to absorb. Because what will happen immediately, Anthony, is that food inflation will go higher. then the structural inflation itself will also begin to increase, right? Then in a situation where you have more in circulation, the purchasing power are now higher, you are definitely going to see all of this playing out.
All right, let's leave that. Let's move to the next talking point before I bring in Chukwuma. Let's talk about your state of origin, Kogi State, where the current deal is the fact that the Court of Appeal in Abuja was to hear the appeal lodged by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission against the order of the Kogi State High Court, which restrained the anti-graft agency from arresting the immediate past governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello. The Kogi Court, in a ruling 2024, restrained the EFCC from inviting, arresting, or detaining the prosecutor. Let's look at, currently we are being told that the judge's absence has stalled the hearing that was supposed to take place today. What's the expectation as regards, do you see this as all the technicalities and all the antics that usually gets played out by the judiciary and the political bigwigs? And are you disappointed that the judge chose to be absent?
Yeah, no, I'm not disappointed. Nobody can truly say the reason why the judge was absent. It could be for an emergency, personal reasons. So I wouldn't say I'm disappointed, but this is a normal show that we see in Nigeria, sadly. But what I would like to comment on this point is, let the rule of law prevail. Now, if there is an order restraining, the EFCC from arresting the past governor, has EFCC approached that same court?
Yes, they've actually gotten a warrant of arrest from another judge in Abuja here, Justice Emeka Nwite, who has given them that warrant of arrest.
So before you can do that, my own layman interpretation is you should be able to at least have a closure on the previous order, that was given. So you can vacate that order, right, by, approaching the same court and tendering your own case, as opposed to you approaching another court and getting another judgment, because judges react to the case that has been tendered before them. You understand? In quote and unquote, they say they are impartial judges, but with the activities that we are seeing, or the activities that we have seen, we want to see how correctly impartial, these judges have been.
All right, Ali Shatta, please, I would like you to just hold on to your horses before you continue your conversation. I will urge Issa Ali Shatta and Chukwuma Nze to rejoin us in a few minutes as we restart the Zoom so that we can continue this conversation after this quick break. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to the program. It's the Desk on Global Television, and we've been looking at very important issues making the rounds in Nigeria. And we started with the CBN trying to recover monies in 9 deposit banks across Nigeria, where about 500.4 billion naira has been stored there that was meant for disbursement to beneficiaries. But Olayemi Kadaso is saying he wants those monies returned back to the Central Bank of Nigeria as the CBN decides to stop the intervention, direct interventions to government. Rather, it will maintain its statutory mandate of being just an advisory to government rather than being a direct intervener of programs, social investment programs by the government. Also looked at the new minimum wage, what is realistic across board as the 37 tripartite member committee set up by the federal government to look into it, as workers are expecting the very best of what the government would be giving to Nigerian workers during the May Day, which is coming up. We've been joined already via Zoom by Barrister Chukwuma Nze, who is a national activist and also political economist in the person of Issa Lushata, giving us their take as regards those issues. We also looked at the issue of the XY governor of Kogi State, Yaya Bello, who is on the run. The EFCC looking to get him, face the long arm of the law. And so the hearing was supposed to hold in Abuja today, but news reaching us says the hearing could not hold because the judge who was supposed to be in charge of the case was absent, so that case being stalled. So we'll be looking at the implication of that. Also, just today in the Federal Capital Territory, the counterterrorism, high-level African counterterrorism meeting held or is taking place in Abuja, where representatives from the regional and sub-regional organizations, civil society, and various entities of the United Nations attended the meeting with the Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina Mohammed, under the Secretary General of the United Nations Office of Counterterrorism, Vladimir Voronkov, special representatives of the United Nations Secretary General for West Africa and the Sahel, Leonardo Santos Samao, the High Representative for the United Nations Alliance for Civilizations, Miguel Morentinos, and other high-level United Nations officials participating in the high-level meeting in Abuja, Nigeria. It's a 2-day meeting which is going to from 22nd to 23rd of April, hosted by the federal government of Nigeria under the auspices of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the National Security Advisor in the person of Malam Nuhu Ribadu, bringing this together. And they are bringing African member states and the African Union and other regional and sub-regional organizations, international partners, including the P5 members of the United Nations Security Council and the civil society organizations. Nigeria's leadership and convening power is being demonstrated through the participation of 4 presidents, 10 ministers, and 8 national security advisors from 29 Africa member states. In addition, there will be representatives from 7 regional and sub-regional organizations, 17 civil society organizations, and various entities of the United Nations. So this is happening right here in the Federal Capital Territory. So we'll be looking at the implication of this and what it means for Nigeria. So these and other talking points is all we'll be looking at on the program, the desk. Let's see how we can get Aliyu Shatta join us via Zoom, and also Chukwuma Nze. Hope they have already rejoined us so that we can continue our conversation. That will be after this very quick break. Stay with us. All right, we've got Aliyu Shatta already rejoining us. Aliyu Shatta, you can wrap up your conversation as regards voice playing out, as regards trying to get Yahaya Bello face the long arm of the law.
Well, I think there's a lot of hula baloo, that have been made out of the situation. But the truth is, we are hearing several narrations and counter narrations, in the political space. So we don't know exactly which one to, tilt to, or which one to accept. There's this school of thought that is saying, okay, he's running from being arrested. There's another school of thought that is saying he was never invited. That how is somebody who was never invited, will be declared wanted? So it is up to, the people at the helms of affair, and most especially the management of EFCC, to come out and show, to the world, that letter of invitation, the date, and everything, and who received it. Then we can take it from there, because it's an allegation that has been levied against the body. So how effectively can they counter it? By demonstrating that he was actually served, an invitation. So, but on the other part is, again, if you don't have anything to hide, please submit yourself to the EFCC and stop embarrassing yourself. That would be my own, obvious response, because we saw the case of Fayose. I mean, Fayose carried his bag and he moves up to EFCC and say, EFCC, I'm here to submit myself. Here I am. And where is Fayose today? Fayose today is a free man, right? So I think Yahaya Bello should man up and just go and submit himself, to the agency.
Okay.
So that at least all of these hula baloo and shenanigans, will be laid to rest.
Do you think the incumbent governor played to the gallery by being the escape route for Yahaya Bello?
Well, that is left to be seen. Like I said, all of these are still allegations. Have you seen it, Anthony? Did you see when the governor went into his premises and smuggled him out? So everything that we are hearing now is hearsay, right? But
but our reporter was there. He watched the convoy of the governor driving to the premises.
And did you see the former governor moving out with the incumbent governor in the same vehicle?
Of course, we know the cars are tinted, so that would be something.
So you see, that's why I said it's a hearsay. Of course, the man, of course, went in to see his former boss and his predecessor. And of course, nobody can ascertain whether, he took him out, from his house. And where is he taking him to? So Yahaya Bello is not a species that you can say you can hide in your pocket. He's a human being. He's a human being. So, so let us see how all of this. But for me, on a serious note, for me, I think it's a show of shame.
Okay.
Right. It would be nice for the governor to submit himself, and if
True.
it were true, or if it was true that the current governor really aided and abated Yahaya Bello leaving his premises, ordinarily I would have expected that he should have driven him straight to EFCC. And given the fact that he was the one who drove his former boss to EFCC, of course EFCC has to account to him, at the end of the day. So I don't know. It's a bit ridiculous, and I think they are making a huge show out of it. We have more serious pressing needs in Nigeria than this distraction, if you ask me.
Time not our friend. We have barely 3 minutes to wrap it up. Let's quickly give Chukwuma a chance to say a word before we wrap it up. Chukwuma, thank you for rejoining us. Hello, Chukwuma, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Chukwuma, a quick one. We know that the counter-terrorism meeting is holding in Abuja currently, and a 2-day affair. How important is this counter-terrorism meeting holding in the FCT, organized by the president and the Nuhu Ribadu, the National Security Advisor? Quick one.
I think it's long overdue, because some of the crimes being perpetrated in our country, they are alleged to be perpetuated by those cross-border criminals. And it is a high time we corrupt, because the borders are just lines that divide two entities. We are first human beings that reside in the same location, and we share so many bilateral and multilateral relationships, and security should be number one. So the security man at the other border end and those from our own end should see themselves as partners that work together to ensure that criminality is mitigated to its barest minimum. So this is a welcome development. I just pray that we get the best out of it, and it will not just be one of the usual security summits we go through, and at the end of the day, we don't feel the impact. Implementation of the resolutions are what we pray to happen immediately after the meetings, and the strategic implementation should be pursued so that these issues can be laid to rest once and for all. Insecurity has threatened the Nigerian state and its neighbors for a very long time, and it looks as if it is insurmountable. And I think if this is what it needs to surmount it, this collaboration, if this is what we need to surmount it, I think it is what it is worth it.
Okay, just a quick one now. What are your expectations? Do you think there should be a joint military task force among these member countries that have, decided to be part of this, counter-terrorism meeting in Nigeria, which had almost 17 African countries and different heads of security agencies join Nigeria in this very important meeting, because we have the United Nations Security Council also having representatives?
Yes, it is important because in West Africa, for instance, we have the language barrier, we have the Anglophone and the Francophone. That collaboration would also enhance communication. Persons with special skills. This is the time when you identify persons with special skills who will bridge some of these barriers, build them into the team that will enhance this the success of this joint task force, as you talk.
I think we've run out of time, and I want to say thank you to Issa Ali Shatta for joining us via Zoom, and also Chukwumanze. Thank you for your contributions on the program. I want to say thank you to both gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and that's how we're going to call it a wrap on today's edition of the program, The Desk. I am